Alright, good day. This is going to be Lasering 101. We go over some rudimentary basic items within lasering softwares and continue on into Adobe basics while that's actually engraving. I do want to get this started, so I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the basics within EZcad. I know there's other softwares you can use. The EZcad is the one that generally comes with the laser. I'll do videos later on actually installations and go more in depth on all the settings within EZcad. But for this video, I'm just going to do the basics and show you what I have already set up ready to go on the laser. So we're going to switch over to the laser in EZcad. So I have my design. It's this knife that you see on the camera. That red dot indicates that my Gevo is on, my laser source is on. I have it leveled and it's ready to go. So I have a pretty in-depth design here. For this, I have my outline, which I use for actually aligning the piece. If I hit F1, you can see that it will trace. It's going around the edge of the workpiece. I've made this by taking a photo and then working it up in Adobe Illustrator, putting that under the laser, focusing it, and then pressing the F1 or trace red to actually outline where my laser is going to be going. Alright, so the blue in this is going to be cut all the way through. And you see there's an area that's going to leave the initial blade itself. The black does a detailing to add to the design, and then the yellow is going to be a white finish to kind of make the design pop. Alright, so some of the basic stuff you want to go over is with this, I have 3 hatches. The other ones are turned off. I'm just going to be using this setting to blast all the way through. I'm not going to go at 100% because I don't want the blade to heat up too much because this is separate areas. By the time it gets done engraving here, this part will have cooled before it gets hit again. The whole blade may heat up, but at 80% power on my 50 watt, it shouldn't be too damaging to the blade tempering. So as you can see, the blue areas are going to be cut out. And with that, I'm using a 0.007 line space. I'm starting at a 0 angle, but we'll be doing a continuous pass with a auto rotate of 27. This often is the source of people having lines in their design. But because this is being cut all the way through, that doesn't particularly matter. But for if any reason I have to stop it halfway or change my mind on actually cutting it all the way through for any reason, I don't want to have a bunch of lines in it. So rotating that angle definitely helps to reduce those lines. I'm using this hatch here, as that tends to be the best one for cutting, and it is faster. For my pin settings, I'm using 1000 speed, 80% power at 30 hertz to really drive that down. Frequency has best been described to me as sandpaper. The lower the grit, the more material you're taking off. The higher the grit, the more of a polish you're doing. So keep that in mind whenever you're actually making these. For the shine pass, I'm doing what I've found as a test to bring white onto my design. It may take 2 or 3 passes to really get that lusterful white, but a good place for you to start. I have my auto rotate off, line space at 0.01, the same hatch, and then under the settings I'm doing 1000 speed, 10 power, 30 frequency. That may not work for you to get a white, but it is a good starting point to where you can dial in to get your white on your machine. For the detailing pass, I have actually 3 hatches going. I have one with the blue pen at a 0.001 to get that deep outline of the detail. Then I will shine it up across that, and then I will do an anneal pass to get a black, smooth, less likely to rust black tone across it. So for this, I'm using a 0.004 line space, and I'm using 400 speed at 20% power at 135 hertz frequency. So your machine may not go all the way up to 135. I do have a JPT, and that does have a larger range. If you have a MOPA, you can get a much farther range, and it just all depends on what your machine can do and what you know about your machine, just dialing these in. But for the most part, a high frequency, a fairly low power at a low speed with tight line spacing will start getting into an anneal because it won't ablate or take away the material. It'll just color it with heat. And that's what I'm looking for on this. So I'll go ahead and get this started. Turn on my vacuum system. You shouldn't be able to hear it very well in the mic. Hopefully it won't be drowning it out. But once the laser is actually running, it may pick that up on the mic. So I will try and get a better audio on Adobe as I'm working that with you. I'm going to go ahead and start this up, do a trial pass for each layer with continuous off. I'm going to do the blue. As you can see that it's going, it's giving me a black, almost rusted look. Oftentimes that is what you get with a high power ablating material. It oxidizes fairly quick and oftentimes will rust on your final work piece. So switch this back over to laser. Let's test shine. It looks good. I'm going to disable. We'll do the detail first. For this detail, I am going to shut off the first hatch. And then I will turn it back on. F2 is fire, but I usually prefer to hit the actual key versus the just button to start it. It's showing that I'm getting that white pass, and then it's going to go back over it with an anneal. Once this is completely done, we'll go into some of the necessary things with Adobe Illustrator, so you can grasp what laser are looking for, what files you're wanting to get, and if you're going to be distributing files, what is required for those on the final setup process. Now you can't really see it from there, but up close I can see that it is turning a nice black for that annealing pass. But while that goes, I'll go ahead and start getting into some of the lesson portion of this. There you can see this is my design that I was going for, leaving portions and having the scroll seem to go on one side and back to the other, leaving it all alternating on the opposite sides to really make that effect pop. The red is for my deep engrave, the white is for my shine, and the black outline for the detail. You can see this is the actual design I loaded into EZcad. Each part is separated. This is used for the alignment on the blade itself. This is what's going to be cutting all the way through, the detail pass, and then the white backfill. Portions of these will take longer to do than others. It's usually start with the outline of the blade using just your pen brush and following it. Then once you have that, you can go back and add the details, whether it be an offset to get that original design area, or moving further into actually creating your design. Some of the things you want to address on Adobe Illustrator is knowing the difference between the different elements and knowing what tools to use. Here I have a quick example of a vector versus a raster. Your vector is going to be actually math points that your laser takes as coordinates when reflecting the mirrors onto the workpiece. It's all math. The raster is grayscale shading or a color palette shading. You can see if you zoom in on a raster image, it gets very blocky. That's just the eye can't really see those from a certain distance, but whenever you get up close or you go to engrave, this has no math for your laser to follow, but there are bit mappings that you can do that'll basically take each point and address what shade of gray it is and give a coordinating power. The more dark on the grayscale, the more power it can give. The lighter, the less power. And then you can even set it off for certain shades of white where it won't engrave at all at a 0 power. This is a vector. This is a color vector. It separates each of the different colors into its own math, and this can be done with an image trace. Oftentimes each color is going to be its own layer, which you'll have to do similar things with rastering a bitmap, where you adjust the darker it is, the more power, the lighter it is, the less power. This is far more advanced. Most of what you're going to be dealing with is going to be black and white actual photos or sketches or design art. A few of the tools that I'd like to go over. I'm going to put this on to the next step. Go ahead and get this going. Do that white shine real quick. Back to this, the first thing you want to know when using Adobe is appearancing using lines for the property portion. If you don't have any of these windows that I bring up, you can go to the Windows tab and you can select the ones that you need. I do suggest having properties, Pathfinder available. For now, that's the main two. So with properties, you have an outline, you have an actual fill, This is a combination, and then the opacity adjustment, which just shows you how see-through the material is going to be that you're working with. I'll go on to put this laser on continuous. So back into Adobe, you have three kinds of paths. You have what you just draw as a single path if you use the brush stroke or a pen tool. This is actually adding the line in the center, and then it shows you how thick your actual brush stroke is at one point. Here we have the brush itself. It shows an outline of that one point, but it shows the overlapping of these lines. Ultimately, if you put it into a laser like this, will create extra points for the laser to mark. And oftentimes that's the biggest hurdle with lasering, is having hidden lines, not knowing it, and then putting it under the laser ultimately to find that your design is messed up during the hatch process. Once you get your design how you would like, you can merge it. And as you can see, this is just one outline. There's not a brush stroke in between, no cutoff. This would be ready to go under the laser. The Pathfinder option is an extremely useful tool. This is our original shape. We have just a red star over a black background. And under Pathfinder, you have these options. This kind of is a quick tutorial on how these are used and what they do to work together. For Unite, as you can see, it just combines them. First feature, minus front. If you put the star in front and then hit highlight both of these, then hit that minus front, it will remove whatever's in front and leave whatever's in back, cutting it through. Now, cutting through is very useful. You have a design over an area that you don't want. The intersect shows where the two shapes align, and then only crops out that little spot in the middle. Exclude, same thing but opposite. It removes the part that overlaps. Divide will actually move each piece where they overlap and cut them along each of the lines to where you can decide what you want. You could change this to black. I use this one a lot because it gives me options to have multiple layer stacking on which one I want before I merge them together. So if I wanted it to be black or if I wanted it to be red, I can decide and not have to go back and make the shape itself. Trim is probably the one I use the most. It's here. And that's just if you have a shape that you don't like, say you have a point here, and it has come off, and for some reason you don't need that extra shape, you can come make a square, take it across the whole thing. There it is, turn the color. I like both shapes. Hit that trim. Go with it. Back to our just taking pieces off. Merge is very important if you have those portions that you want to be combined into one. Just make sure they're the same color, and then you can merge those into one shape. They won't cut off any kind of overlap, and it will become part of the shape. Crop is very similar to intersect, but it leaves the back part instead of the front. Outline just takes your shape and then just leaves you with the outlines. Ultimately, you can pick the shape that you're after, go back, and fill it however you so choose. Minus back, we're looking at the star. It removes where it is cut, but then takes all the back and leaves frontmost portion. Alright, another part that I see people have problems with is patterns. So these are not the same, and this is kind of demonstration on how these hidden lines get into your art. With a pattern, you can make a pattern by going to Object, Pattern, Make, and you can adjust it, and then it'll essentially make this into a fill that you can use on your shape. As an example, I've made this pattern. If I click this, I can change the color. One of the options is whenever you make a pattern, you can use that fill. You can see there's no hidden shapes around it. But if I move this, you can see that it's not really holding the shape. If you see it, I moved these. One of these has been expanded to where it is cut to that design. And as you can see, they look very similar, but there are hidden lines. If I hit the point selection tool and highlight, you can see the hidden lines, and if you load this into your laser, it will still see that as math that needs to be engraved, and that will muddle up your design. So you'll see online that there's all sorts of ways that you can do this to get this right, whether it be going to your effects, I believe it's Pathfinder, object, expanding it, expand it through the fill. That makes it similar to the other one. But again, you still do have your hidden line. If I select this, go to Pathfinder, merge, apply merge, go back. And that's the process that it'll tell you to do online whenever you're looking up getting into lasers and making your own designs. The first problem you run into this. I have found a solution that works 99% of the time. I am hesitant to even show because it does kind of a trick that I keep to myself is if I want to train somebody, it really is something that will help you out. And what I do is I clone the shape. So this has all these hidden lines in it. But if I take a shape of a solid color, and then I do that again, so copy and paste, change the color. If I take my shape, arrange it, bring it to the front where it goes above these. I'm essentially cookie cuttering it. This is why I put in Pathfinder. Trim it too. And then you have a special tool called the magic brush. You press the Y button. And that's here. Y button. You get the magic brush, which selects the color. So there is other red in my art here. So if I move that, it's going to move all the red in my art. So be wary of that whenever you're picking your colors. Pick a color that you're not using anywhere else. Highlight both. Send it through. Press Y. Put that blue. Now I have the reverse of my actual original shape. So if I put that on here, do the same thing. Trim. As you can see, these are still together. That's one. Control G groups items. Control Shift G stop. But whenever they're not grouped, if you try and select the shape, it won't do it. You'll have to highlight what you want. You can also go here to Object, Group, Control G, and it'll make them into one shape. You can see this one has lines through it. That's just where the points connected in the design. They are connected. If I hit merge, it fills those. So this, and hit trim. Press Y again for the magic brush. I'm going to remove by hitting delete. This, if I hit this, it's still one shape. So I can hit Control G, or if you hold Shift or if you hold Control while picking, it'll pick the one shape that you have. But if you click again, it's still delete. This is handy for just highlighting what you don't need. Hit delete, fill around it, delete again, and it's there. And as you can see, there are no hidden lines because it didn't copy the hidden line through the Pathfinder option. It only copies the physical shape that has fill to it. One thing to watch out for though is if you ever have your opacity down, you try and cut a shape. Doesn't always work 100%. So I hope this was very helpful. You can find the shortcut ton of papers all over the internet, cheat sheet. I recommend whenever you're using your keyboard as hotkeys, holding shift will let you move the actual workpiece. The Q lasso, if you only want portions of your design removed, you can go around them. Say I only want half this. And I don't want this star. Remove just that area. A Q is very useful. A direct select is this button here. A, which is what you use to kind of show those hidden elements of your design. I can expand, show that. Then I hit A, highlight. You can see all the hidden points within them. Definitely memorize that one. I have a drawing tablet that I use. I hold space. I can just move my work. And then if I hit the B button, I can freehand draw and make whatever I need. If I hold the Z button, I can zoom in and out with my brush using this tool. The magic brush is the one I was telling you before, where you pick your color, and the pen tool is very useful for making points. And then the A tool will let you pick the point individually, as well as you have a shape like a star. You hit A on it, you can adjust the bevel and angles, as well as the individual shape. If I hit Q, it selects only the point within what I selected. If I hit A, I can move this point. Rotating. These are all things as you get more familiar with Adobe, you'll get better and better with it. Definitely know these shortcuts, the copy, paste, that's pretty general across multiple computer platforms. The undo and redo are very useful. Let's say that star, I hit Control Z. Say you like that, you can just hit the Shift Control Z, and it'll bring it back. Deselect all is important for when you're zoomed in on a worksheet very far. Just working on it, you can click around, undo. Let's say you're wanting to click something else. Control Shift A to deselect, and then you can just. I've fixed my design on the laser that doesn't have these little gaps in here, so that's something you need to watch out for. That if you use the trim trick that I showed you with the cookie cutter, it'll fill any of the open gaps you have within your design. That's the essential basics of Adobe and running your laser. I hope this video was very informative and helped. I wish I knew a lot of the stuff whenever I first started. but this is still just a stepping stone.